on this call. Hi, this is Moses
Hi,
Jacobs.
Rosa.
Sorry, that just spoiled my introduction. This is Moses Jacobs for the DeBarra Spoken Word. And I'm already talking to Mich Maroney, who is spearheading, do I say that rightly?
Yeah.
The next session at the DeBarra Spoken Word on the 10th of July, Wednesday the 10th of July, start 8:30 in the DeBarra Spoken Word in Clonakilty, Pier Street, at the DeBarra's Folk Club. And Mich, can you tell us a little bit about the next session on the 10th of July? Because it's not you in the spotlight by yourself.
No, God, which I don't really like, actually. I don't really like being a spotlight, so no, definitely not.
You're an artist. As an artist, you have to be in the spotlight.
Well, yeah, but if you're not, well, anyway, let's not go into
Yeah, well, it's relevant. It's relevant.
It is relevant. Yeah, I don't like being in the spotlight in person. Obviously, I like my work to be in the spotlight. I think that's very, very different. I think yeah, of course, I want my work to be in the spotlight, but I do feel my work is not necessarily me. And what I don't really enjoy is being I don't enjoy public speaking, basically. So that's what I meant, really. I always ask somebody to, and there are so many brilliant people who are involved with SWERVE who are very, very good at doing the emceeing. So that's really what I meant. I like to ask other people to come in and introduce the, obviously I introduce the magazine, but I like to invite other people to come and do the emceeing, because there's just so many people just brilliant at it. It's not in my skill set, basically. So that's actually what I meant.
Okay, I do want to object to this, because I mean, you're both a visual artist and you've become a writer. I think you didn't start out as a writer, but you've become one.
No.
Is that correct? Yes?
Yeah, it is correct. Actually, it's very interesting what you say, because when I started writing, it was during lockdown, in Matthew Geedon's. Actually, it was Denise Woods, first of all. She was actually brilliant at getting non-writers like me. Well, I say non-writers, I used to write about art and my own work, so I was writing, but not creatively. And she was very, very good at getting people like me who were very unconfident to get going. And when I first started, I would not have imagined being able to read my work, even in the group. I was very, very uncomfortable about reading my own writing to anybody, and I would cringe with horror. And now I would do it at the drop of a hat. So it's really interesting what you say about, being in the spotlight. I'm not sure it's actually about being in the spotlight, but it's actually about wanting your work to be out there.
Yeah,
and actually,
that was my objection to what you said, because I've heard
to do it, which
very well,
yeah,
and very
yeah,
confident.
yeah. And Matthew Geedon's Prose Collective, again, it's that was a great way of getting going. Yeah.
So SWERVE is deliberately, purposefully set up as a combination of visual art and writing and texts.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, I was used to making my own artist book, so I was kind of well versed in making publications in the magazine format. So I was doing that sort of thing for myself. And I very, very consciously wanted to make it about visual arts and writing, because I think they just go together. I think they are they just seem like a natural thing to do, to be honest. And I was very much influenced by a beautiful publication I bought in a gallery in London, Abbott and Holder. It's an old book it's an old magazine called Verve. Actually, that's where we got our name from. I couldn't possibly have called it Verve, so we had a sort of like brainstorming session. We came up with Verve, which I'm delighted about. And it was very much a balance of visual images and writing, actually. So that was a huge influence.
Yeah,
and I think also my life as a visual artist as well, of course. I mean, that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and I suppose that, I mean, not everyone has a visual sense. Some people have an auditory sense, or, smell things. But for a lot of people, visuals are closely connected to writing. Because, I mean, if you write, that's interesting. If you write something, do you actually see things, the things you write about?
That's a really interesting question, because I think I use a completely different part of my brain when I write. When I'm making stuff, I think my brains are in my hands when I'm doing visual art. It's a completely different, to me, it's a completely different activity. Although, of course, my training as a visual artist and my interest in visual art is very much the fore of my writing, because I write about I mean, my novel is about an artist, you know, so yeah. But no, they're very different activities, actually. It's really interesting. I find if I'm really doing a lot of writing, I tend not to draw. So and vice versa. I tend to sort of separate the two activities
Yeah,
out.
that's funny. And I mean, you talk a lot about we. I mean, to my mind, you said you initiated Swerve, or was it a group of people? And is it still a group of people? Is it still the same group of people?
I suppose I did. It was my idea to do it, I think, at the beginning, and in fact, it started off as an anthology because you know, the Prose Collective with Matthew. There was so much great writing going on. I thought, well, what a shame if this all just disappears into the ether after these, you know, after the lockdown, because we're all writing in lockdown. And I just thought, oh, well, let's just make a magazine. In fact, it was much more of an anthology, really, the first Swerve. And so that's what we did. We put a lot of writers together, people I knew, people I didn't know, from the various groups that were going during lockdown. And then afterwards, it was picked up by the West Cork Literary Festival, which nearly kind of blew me away. I just hadn't even considered something like that happening. So, I mean, I'd always intended to carry on because I really enjoyed putting the magazine. It was a very, very enjoyable thing for me to do as a creative project. It was very fulfilling and interesting. And the first one was just my own photographs, actually. I just thought I'll just put a few. Basically, I was kind of doing, I did it on my kitchen table. That's how I think about it. I kind of threw it together and used all my own photos, actually, because I did it in a great hurry. I didn't know many visual artists. I wasn't sure how it would pan out. So I just thought I'll just put it together with my own photos and see how it looks. And it worked. And then for the second Swerve, we put out a call to visual artists, poets, prose writers, memoirists, anybody really. And it was a very different animal, basically, Swerve 2. And some of the people involved with Swerve 1 are still there. They're a great kind of core group of readers, actually. Janet, Donal, Susan, and we've got a lovely lady from Canada now who does our proofreading, who's amazing. So yeah, there's a very core group of kind of Swerve people from the first one. And also we now have a poetry editor who's great, Dan Fraser. So yeah, I would say most of the work I do most of the work though, actually.
Yeah, you're pulling the cart in a way.
Yeah, I mean, because I put the magazine together, it's very much, you know, because I do all the designing and the actual desktop publishing, I suppose I'm in the kind of driving seat, if you in a way, you know, and it's very much my aesthetic. It is my aesthetic. I mean, there's just no two ways about it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. What can we expect on in terms, because Swerve 3 is not going to be published just yet. It won't be published by the 10th of July, I think.
No, unfortunately not. I don't want to rush it. It's going to be ready for the Skib Arts Festival. We're taking part in the Skib Arts Festival actually this year again. And I'm very excited about that because my artist in residence is going to be Charlotte Malik, a sculptor, and Hannah Hoare, a writer. And they actually were brought together in Swerve 2 as part of I do an artist-writer collaboration each year. Well, I'm hoping to. Last year was Charlotte and Hannah, and they're going to be bringing Charlotte's amazing soft sculpture. It's a soft sculpture installation. It's going to fill the pop-up gallery here. And Hannah's going to be doing a reading. So that's going to be happening. It's Skib Arts Festival this year. So I'm really, really excited about that.
What date will that be?
I think it's the 26th of July to the 5th of August. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what can we expect on the 10th of July in terms of readers?
Well, I kind of thought of it as a celebration of Swerves 1 and 2, actually. I'm really hoping people from both of the magazines will turn up and read. And actually, I was even thinking, why not involve Swerve 3 as well, actually, depending on how many, you know, I mean, why not, actually? So, yeah, it's going to be people who've read before. Actually, maybe one or two new people from Swerve 3. That might be fun.
Do you already have a list of people who are going to read?
I have a list, yeah, and I've just sent an email out just in case, you know, people find themselves free and want to do it again. So that's just gone out as well. So yeah, I do have a list there.
So we can use that eventually. And the other thing is you mentioned dystopian fiction.
Yes.
Is that Hannah Hoare?
It is Hannah Hoare. She's just published her first novel.
So what is dystopian fiction, if I may ask?
What is dystopian fiction?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a kind of vision of the future, which is not necessarily a future you particularly want to live in. That would be my summing up of it, actually. It's I suppose it's the opposite of a utopia. A dystopia is
so it's like everything's gone to hell in a in a
Well, that's what it
part.
seems
And
like to me. I mean, I'm not a big fan of dystopian fiction, actually, but now I have because I mean, I really like Hannah's writing. And in fact, I've started doing a bit of dystopian. It became a solution to my novel, actually, oddly enough, even though I'm sort of not a big fan of it, to be honest. But it's something I'm doing myself because it kind of creates a solution for me. I don't know. I wasn't sure how to end my novel. And I suddenly thought, wait a minute.
so you've added a dystopian future to
I
your
have actually,
present
yeah,
and past.
much to my surprise.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it's a bit pessimistic. That's the problem. I think it's such a pessimistic view of the world, you know.
But it can be
I think maybe,
yeah, it can be amusing as well. It's, I suppose it
yeah,
can be like a Star Trek novel or a Star Wars
yeah.
film or whatever.
And people are really inventive. I mean, you know, Hannah's work is very, very inventive, which is the really fun part about it, you know.
Okay. There's this one thing, you know, like the work that you present and that you want to present, because obviously Swerve is not just a magazine; it's also an art space,
Yeah.
as you mentioned before. How does that differ from work that you'd find in big galleries or museums in Ireland,
Well,
England?
it's interesting because it's going to be a pop-up space. I mean, I don't really want to be a gallerist. So I think the way I'm looking at it is going to be a pop-up space for art that I really, really like. And also people I think actually deserve a leg up who are not going to get a leg up. You know, for example, I showed the work of two Ukrainian refugees, which was great because it meant that, you know, they got a body of work together, they got a bit of money, and people saw their work. So I just think that's very worthwhile. Also, I'm very interested in showing, giving young artists their first solo exhibition. I mean, I'm really interested in art that doesn't have a natural home in commercial galleries. I mean,
Okay.
that basically that's it, you know. I mean, much as I like the work that I see in those galleries, they're very, very competent, very beautifully made. I'm not interested in sort of pretty landscapes, you know, the sort of thing that you can buy anywhere. Actually, there's some great work in West Cork made, you know, along those lines. But I'm actually interested in stuff that isn't necessarily going to have a market, you know, but it's
Yeah.
very interesting and deserves a show. I mean, for example, Rosita Kingston
Yeah.
created a site-specific installation for us based on artwork she and an ex-partner had created. And spanning, I think, over 30 years. So it was cards, letters, you know, and it sort of reflected this very, how I put it, it was a coercive relationship. It served to give a platform to coercive relationships and
Could you
how
explain coercive relationships?
well,
To
I think it's where there's an imbalance of power and one partner is sort of disempowered a lot, you know, because sometimes it's very subtly done over years and sort of made to behave in a way that is not natural to them, and that's the way I would look at it. And it can be much more sinister than that. You know, that was how Rosita gave a very, very, very riveting talk about her own situation, and that's what I took away from her own situation. It was like, you know, she suddenly woke up to the fact that she was doing things that she didn't want to do. It was not natural for her, but sort of, you know, slowly and insidiously she had been put in a position where, you know, she had no choice. It's very interesting. I think we've all been there though, in some way, you know, in some form or another. You know, we've all been in those situations where you think, well, wait a minute, you know, what's going on here? Well, I certainly have anyway.
yeah, and
So it was very interesting to hear her point of view and to feel, well, actually, do you know what? You're not alone. And I thought it was really important that we should give her work a platform because I think that it's a very, very important issue. But she did it so brilliantly. I mean, visually, it was absolutely fantastic because the artworks were beautifully made. I mean, aesthetically, very sophisticated. So, you know, it was a huge, huge pleasure to show it. And also, she's amazing. She's brilliant. I mean, you know, sometimes you work with artists and they're a bit sort of, you know, they're kind of putting up the show and half an hour before, you know, you're kind of having a slight nervous breakdown. She's absolutely meticulous and just brilliant to work with in terms of the practicality of putting up a show like that. So it was a very, very good experience, you know, all round.
is she going to be involved in the future that
I
you
hope
know
so.
of?
I'd love to show that work again or any other work that she makes in the future and perhaps do some workshops. I mean, we're thinking of doing some workshops, so that would be great.
Okay, workshops in art making, in
Yeah,
installation
yeah,
making.
yeah. I think art making it
Yeah,
at Swerve. I mean, there is that we do have scope for that.
yeah. Would that be the first? I mean, have you done workshops so far, or is this,
Um,
you
there was
know?
a workshop last year by the artist in residence, Caroline, who came last year, but it didn't take place here, she did a kind of art sketch crawl around Skib, which went down very well actually. But no, not actually here in the building.
So that would be a new venture as well.
It would be a new venture. Yeah, I'm all for it, actually.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. And how about Swerve 4?
Well, I'm already thinking about it, actually. I mean, I've got people lined up. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if I'm, well, of course, the big question is funding, you know, because I cannot actually afford to do this for much longer. Swerve 1 was financed, Swerve 2 was financed by me entirely, except for a tiny amount of funding from Cork Arts, which didn't even cover a quarter of our printing costs, you know, so it's that, it is that critical. I mean, I do not have the money to do it. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think the solution for me is to carry on as if we will get the money eventually. So that's what I'm you know, I am beginning to think about Swerve 4 actually. And the big change is we're having images on the cover now. I've decided that we are going to have images on the cover, and it's very exciting this time around because John Minahan, our superstar contributor, we're going to have one of his photos on the cover. So that's really exciting.
Do you have a magazine to hand at the moment?
I haven't. No. It isn't out yet. I'm right in the middle of finalizing it. So no. So that's very exciting. I think it's a very exciting departure because at first I thought, oh, I just want this very minimal, very elegant, you know, no images, just that. I thought, actually, no, that's just boring, to be honest, because it's just too samey. It's just too boring. You know, much as I like the idea of a kind of minimalist aesthetic, it's just not going to work. So actually, it's much more exciting to have a cover. Then you can invite people to do the cover. You see, so it's just more fun, actually.
Because I mean, what is very striking about Swerve so far is the color combination, I think, sort of like pink and yellow. And do you have anything about your sense of color before we wrap this up?
The pink and yellow stays. I mean, that's going to be, you know, used in our promotions, and because I just think it's very it's quite distinctive, you know. I just want it to stand out. So that's really the reason. Yeah, and it's a bit kitsch as well. You know, I'm sort of slightly fighting against this rather stuffy, tasteful image that, you know, new writing has. I don't want people to think it's some sort of literary tome that's no fun. So it's slightly kitsch, fun. Glossy. It's glossy. Some people react against that, but I don't care.
It's a hint of burlesque, perhaps.
Yeah, well, not. You know, I think it should be enjoyable. In fact, I think we ought to be able to pick up copies of Swerve in every supermarket in the country. This is what I'm aiming for. Okay. With your cornflakes, you know.
Yes, I do. And okay, I will put your a link to your website. You have a website. For if people want to know where they can obtain Swerve 3.
Perfect. Oh yeah, Illan Arts Centre. In fact, I encourage people to go to the Crawford Arts Centre because they are such great supporters. They don't charge us any commission. The Crawford Arts Centre don't charge us any commission, so that they are my heroes. It's brilliant. Everywhere else, I have to pay a swinging commission, which is the norm, you know. But the fact is, we can't really afford to pay that, you know, to do that. But we do. We have to anyway, just to get it out.
But so the Illan also?
The Illan Arts Centre, you get it in Skib. The Crawford Arts Centre in Cork. You can come to the office here. I'm happy to mail it out to anybody. And of course, you can download it. I'm really encouraging people to download it because it looks beautiful on a screen, actually.
And you might, you know, the Clonakilty Art Centre might.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's very far away. You're in Skibbereen. Okay, thank you very much, Mich, and I look forward to the 10th of July. Thank you so much.
Great, me too. Lovely.